Hello, beautiful creatures of the world, and welcome back to Coffee with Kerri-Lynn. It's a beautiful day underneath the Meditation and Wellness tent in the far north of Maine, up along the Canadian border in the crown of Maine. I hope everybody is having a nice, warm, sunny summer day wherever you may be. I hope you're having a day filled with fabulosity and strong coffee, because you're going to need some strong coffee for this show that we're doing today. Did you look at the headlines in the paper? You need strong coffee for that, too. There's no easy way to do this show. There's no simple way to sugarcoat what's going on. You're going to step into the voting booth on November 5th, and you are either going to vote communist or you are going to vote for your freedom. And for the first time in my adult life, as a voter, I'm scared to death about what's going to happen to this country, because it's a no-win situation. Doesn't matter what the outcome is when the polls begin to close, because the choice is communism or freedom. And those who want freedom I don't think a lot of us will be able to function under communism. And those who want communism, if they don't get it, there's going to be trouble. There's going to be trouble. It's going to be the winter of love like you ain't never seen before. There going to be bonfires everywhere, ladies and gentlemen, beautiful creatures of the world. I have a bit of a different perspective on politics now that Harris has announced her vice presidential pick, because she picked a full-blown commie Marxist, a person who apologizes for his white privilege, a person who does not believe in the individual. He believes in the collective. If you don't have, then you should be able to take some of what somebody earned. Distribution. I look at things through a bit of a different lens, because I was traumatized by communism as a child. I grew up in a household traumatized by real communism. My great-grandparents on my father's side escaped communist Poland. My great-grandfather sailed the ocean blue, came through Ellis Island, had a sponsor, reported to the police station once a week to prove he had a job, moral value, and good character. And if he screwed anything up, his sponsor was in trouble. My great-grandparents settled in a small town that my grandmother was born in, my father was born in, and I was born in, all in the same house. My great-grandfather left a lot of the old customs and the traditions back in the old country. And when genealogy became the thing, it was very sad to me when I was much older, a young adult, that we didn't have a lot of custom and tradition. The customs and traditions we had surrounded food, but a lot of the beautiful Polish traditions and customs were completely lost, because my grandfather, my great-grandfather, Americanized himself. He was an American when he set foot on this soil. He believed in assimilating into the melting pot. He melted right in. He left the Polish language behind. They weren't really allowed to speak Polish in the household, although my great-grandmother, her and my grandmother, were fluent. But not around him they weren't. They made sure that they towed the line and respected him as the head of the household. He ended up realizing the American dream. He started his own business, and that was after many years of toiling for other people. He started his own business, a grocery store, and when he no longer wanted to run the grocery store, he sold it off. It was all my growing up, it was a grocery store. It went from the Polish grocery store to the Italian grocery store. And His legacy has run through 4 generations. We are very fortunate because my great-grandfather had a dream, and he struggled, and he toiled, and he persevered. And that's what we were taught to do in my family. You didn't give up. You just didn't give up. On my mom's side of the family, her family legacy, her family history goes all the way back to the Mayflower. I have amazing genealogical history to claim. And today we're pretty much just going to talk about my dad's side. Now, my grandmother being the firstborn child, the first generation American, born in this country, she lived in a household that had a lot of trauma under the Iron Curtain. And it was instilled in her. Generational trauma. Now, my great-grandmother, her mother, she and my grandfather was also first generation born in the country. His parents were from Ireland. They lived upstairs. My great-grandparents lived downstairs. They had my dad, and my grandmother remained a working woman, and my great-grandmother raised my dad. Also instilled a lot of trauma from the old country, the communist trauma, into my father. My parents subsequently had me. They lived upstairs. After my great-grandparents passed away, my parents moved in upstairs, and my grandmother and my grandfather moved downstairs. And I was largely influenced. I was not raised by, but I was largely influenced by my grandmother, who had a lot of communistic trauma instilled into her life. You don't want communism in this country. And once it's installed, not in the rest of my lifetime, will we see freedom. When I was a child, somebody called me a dumb Polak. I went home, bawling my eyes out to my grandmother. It didn't matter, because the person that called me a dumb Polak was a dumb Polak themselves. It was my cousin. And my grandmother said, "Do you know what that means, to be a dumb Polak?" I said, "No." She says, "It just means communism didn't get you." She explained to me how communism, authoritarianism, totalitarianism was installed in Poland. You see, first they talked about the whole, the collective. Then they guilted professional people who could afford higher education, or education at all. They guilted them into being privileged. Follow me here. Then anyone of the so-called higher educated privileged class that spoke out against the Marxist philosophies, they were exterminated. The other higher educated people fell in line real darn fast. And they would gladly point out to their government who didn't agree. Once the government got done exterminating everyone that didn't agree, they went after the higher educated, privileged people that did agree with them. And they exterminated them until all that was left was laborers and farmers. People that had to toil so hard to scratch out a living to feed their families. That's all that was left. And that's where you get the phrase, dumb Polak. And my grandmother said to me, there are no dumb Polacks. There are only hard-working people that know how to survive. And that was one of my first lessons in communism. And I was but a bitty old thing. It's amazing when I see people on the left bidding for free everything. They don't care how they get it. And the politicians don't care what they're promising them. Forgive all the student loans. That money is coming from somewhere. And it's coming off the back of the working American. Taxes get paid. It saddens me what is going to happen on November 5th, 2024. It scares the shit out of me what is going to happen when those polls close. I don't see a lot of good happening as they try to decide the election. Every time I think about the far left screaming, shouting people down, peacefully protesting, I think about the destruction that can come so swiftly to our country, to our rights, to our freedoms. They are going to install the Patriot Act 2.05. Let me tell you. You are not going to be able to make a move for some time in this country after November 5th. Because the people with the derangement syndrome are going to be let loose. If the Marxist communists don't win. And if the Marxist communists do win, ladies and gentlemen, you better get food, because 2020 taught people a thing. It taught them not to buy the damn toilet paper. Start getting some extra in your life right now. Because for the first time in my life, I'm afraid. I'm afraid for the turn our country's going to take. I'm afraid that we are going to turn into Venezuela. I'm afraid for my friends' children who are of draft age. I'm afraid for the future of my grandchildren. It's time we start getting right on the inside, mind, body, and soul. Do what you have to do. Cry your eyes out now. Go to the grocery store, get extra, sit in your beautiful backyard, let your heart break, cry your eyes out. Because what's going to happen at the election polls in November, you're going to need to be really, really strong. And you're going to need to be really, really ready. mentally, physically, you're gonna have to have your house in order. I think we're gonna go back to generational housing. I don't have a crystal ball. I can't tell you exactly what's going to happen. But I can tell you, if freedom wins, the civil strife in this country is going to be off the charts. And if communism wins, ladies and gentlemen, beautiful creatures of the world, there's going to be a lot of people that cannot navigate it. Communism is about decline. It's not about thriving. It's going to be about surviving. Beautiful creatures of the world. That is the doom and gloom take, the outlook on our near future. I wish the people on the far left understood what they were doing. And I pray to God that we do not end up like Venezuela. I hope that I never have to hear the phrase, dumb American. Beautiful creatures of the world, take this time to enjoy, reflect, gather, and prepare yourself for what's going to happen. Carpe Diem, beautiful creatures. Seize your day, because no one promised you a tomorrow.